Hello, hello, hello. Today is Monday, June 2nd, 2025. 2025. I don't know why I said it so many times. I'm a little nervous. I told you I don't like the cameras and all of that. So I get a little nervous talking on camera. But today I want to talk about something more serious. It's a serious topic today. This is the Adroit Living session of the Erudition Network. I like to talk about mental health and adroit living because it's a lot of the connections we're not making out loud that needs to be more we need to be more cognitive of, unconscious, aware. So I'm going to talk about a lot of different things on this show, but today I'm going to speak specifically about Black men's mental health. It's relative to all diverse communities because in order to improve efficacy and to advance, we need to understand very rudimentary social interactions. So, with that being said, this is an interactive live stream. So, feel free to make comments. Hey, Eddie, thank you for being here. And ask questions if you want. If you've seen previous episodes and you have questions about them, feel free to ask. Feel free to ask. Okay, so a lot of times people think that change is something that's synonymous with improvement or advancements, but we have seen that that's not so. Look at the iPhone. You saw the iPhone. Hey, Sean Anthony, thank you for coming. Um, we've seen the iPhone change, but we haven't always seen it improve or advance. So, with that being said, change is inevitable, but advancement, it takes strategic planning. But that's why we need to talk about and understand, or just simply be informed about what it means for Black men's mental health and the concerns that concern the Black men's mental health. This episode was a special request, and I'm going to honor my elders in giving this episode. So tune in, share, like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. But here we go. We're going to go into it. This may trigger some people. So if you have any feelings or emotions where you feel like you really need to talk to someone right now, please dial 988. See if someone can talk with you there or listen to you there. Okay, so Black men's mental health. Um, let's lead by understanding acceptance, tolerance, and patience. It's all right to have a problem. Let's learn to understand the problems we identify as having. Then learn to accept your new situation, which takes time. Make others aware for tolerance, not for excuse to just deal with it because it's whatever. So just because you're making people aware that you have a problem, it doesn't mean that they have to have a tolerance to your problem. It doesn't mean anything other than the fact that they are informed that you have a problem. So a large part of that is identifying that, yep, maybe you may not know what the problem is, but you know there's something. So that gives them a bit of a tolerance level and excuses the fact that somebody may think that you're asking for a pardon or to be excused for having a problem. So make others aware so they can have a tolerance to whatever your problem is. Making people aware and asking for tolerance while you're working on yourself requires patience from all parties involved. And remember, love aids advancements in mental health, cognitive development, and many other things, but it's a process which never ends, but is proven to be worthwhile for receiving love in return for love. A lot of times people they're like, "Oh well, I really don't like you, but because I love humanity, they will be more tolerant and, overstep, a little bit by telling you, look, you might not want to be bothering me today, but that's fine for somebody to tell you, look, don't bother me today. Don't come at me with it today. That's fine, you know. But again, you might have these concerns and this may be triggering. So please feel free at any point in time to dial 988 to talk with someone for free who may be able to help you if you need to talk to someone right now. But you can also seek mental health care professionals who are in your area. So and another thing, hey Jackie, thank you for being here. Another thing, a lot of people who are groomed for this aren't made for this. So keep trying to find somebody that you can speak with who is made for it. All right. I'm just saying. But back to the topic. Black men's mental health. Uh, It's like all the women who ever hurt a guy, the woman he's with, she pays for it, for all of those people who ever hurt him. And a lot of times, Black men aren't aware that they're making the woman they're with pay for all the things, all the transgressions of somebody else. When men who are heads of communities, regardless of actual position, because a lot of times they don't have the title of a leadership or authoritative position, but they may feel overwhelmed because they have that persona. They have the weight of, yeah, you're a Black man, you're a leader of some community, you're a Black man, and people are just going to depend on you, and they know that. So a lot of times you'll see Black men be defensively, psychologically protecting their feelings as being the way others feel about them to justify, defensive behavior towards someone seen as a threat or someone who's more easily targeted. And, you know, chatting people catching strays because they're in the vicinity of that Black man who may be in a defensive mode, and now he's trying to defend himself, and somebody that's in the vicinity, they catching strays, and it's not intentional. It's just that something put this Black man in a defensive mode, and now to defend himself he's like blocking and trying to attack people who may be a little less difficult to attack, or put all the attention off on that person to take the attention off himself so he can regroup and build up a little bit. It happens all the time. Of course, it's not just Black men, but it happens with Black men. And a lot of people do not want to acknowledge that this is an issue that the Black man may be having. Instead, they'll say things like, oh, he's an angry Black man, or he's an abusive Black man, or mislabel them simply because they're not trying to acknowledge that these are defensive issues that run in all communities. So we need to recognize that within the Black man's community, psychologically, a lot of Black men have a psychological deflection. It's also a defense to avoid criticism or avoid feeling overwhelmed, but it's most harmful when it's a pattern of behavior all the time and the person refuses self-accountability too frequently. A lot of times, a Black man may feel like somebody's always targeting him, somebody's always blaming him for something, and he's like, yeah, it's not always my fault, and they may deflect instead of accept accountability for the things that they may actually be accountable for. Because it's like once they feel like they're targeted for a particular act, then they have to put all the blame off on someone else. A lot of times it becomes a frequent situation where they're always deflecting and never accepting any accountability. That's when it becomes habitual, and that's when they may need to start seeking help, because you have to accept some accountability, even if the total issue is not all your fault. Still accept some accountability so people can recognize that yes, you're improving, yes, you're aware, and yes, you are trying to be better. Acknowledge where you are going wrong and where you need help. Don't always be defensive and deflect onto other people and target other people who are easier so that you could put the stress off yourself and onto someone else. People don't always have the right words to say or to convey thoughts and feelings or express themselves in acceptable ways because no one's perfect. So a lot of times those two um, things I just mentioned are the primary go-to acts. It's so common with the black man because that's like 101 being black in America 101. But seek help by identifying something may be off or something there that you can improve upon. But it's not to say that something's like so detrimentally wrong with you. Just some things that you might be able to improve on because yes, it is a conditioned behavior from growing up as an African American man. I don't know if it's in all black people, all black men, but it is in all of the African American men I've ever encountered or heard about or even observed from afar. At some at times some men can be too nice. That's another one of the issues I've seen with black men. And um I understand it because they don't want to be seen as the angry black man, and they don't want to be seen as being defensive or overly defensive or deflecting on someone else, and they'll take all the self accountability on themselves even though it's not their fault. So that's actually a psychological defense as well. It can suggest a tendency to prioritize the needs of others or the feeling of others over one's self. It leads to burnout, feeling underappreciated, having difficulties being assertive, and you may behave as though you fear conflict and you want to be liked no matter the cost. People pleasing can be a psychological problem, and balance is key. And yeah, a lot of times people are out there people pleasing and they don't even have a clue why they're people pleasing. They only know that, oh well, this will make this person happy or that person happy, and it's not about necessarily making someone happy or putting somebody in agreeable status with you. It's about the fact that you may have a psychological problem which derive from you feeling overwhelmed, or you feeling like if you were to be viewed any other way that it will cause conflict and you would like to avoid those conflicts. A lot of black men, they don't want to enter into a conflict, and that's why they'll have these particular problems. And a lot of times it'd be the very reason why the black man got the problem in the first place. I'm just saying, because a lot of times people interact with black men and they don't understand what's going on, why they behaving this way. So yeah, it's important for you to understand why these black men are reacting this way, why they acting this way, and why they conditioned to think this way. Hey, Mike, I appreciate you being here. And a lot of times black men feel like they can talk to someone, and when they finally do talk to someone, they want to be able to trust that that someone has their back, as opposed to you gonna tell all their business. That's why it's very important to understand these topics, because it can also lead to fear of commitment, avoidance to long-term people, jobs, and responsibility is a part of fear of commitment for irrational reasons, which may have a relationship to past experiences like a traumatic experience, which are long over and have been overcome successfully, but there's a lingering fear remaining, and it continues to disrupt the rational thoughts and feelings and behaviors of that person. A number of men struggle with anxiety, depression, substance abuse disorder, work related stress and burnout, also anger and irritability, bipolar disorder, um, you know, and a lot of other things that come from various interactions that they've had. And yeah, Mike, it is. It's hard for men to be vulnerable. And that's why a lot of men do have a fear of commitment, because they're like, well, I don't know. I can't commit to this. I can't commit to that, because this person may show me something that I don't want to see, or they may not accept me. And a lot of men don't like rejection. A lot of black men hate rejection, because so oftentimes, being a black man, they've been rejected just for the color of their skin. Had nothing to do with their behavior, had nothing to do with how they talk or how well they enunciate themselves. It's just they were rejected. But I'm going to get further into that. I'm going to get deeper into that. So stay tuned. But personality disorders, which cause people to harm themselves and others, it can lead to unlawful acts and a criminal record. But a lot of times, black men don't have any idea what's going on, so they can't avoid those problems in the way that other communities can. A lot of times, there's not enough awareness in the black community for the people to be able to tolerate a lot of the things like black fatigue. Black fatigue is when black people have to deal with the passive aggressiveness of white people who do these various things. For example, I remember going to the museum, and while we were there, I'm the only one. There's about 5 black men with me, and a white couple see us there enjoying the exhibits, and they come over there and pass major gas. And then they look at us because they're waiting for a reaction, they're waiting for a response. And I told everybody, just move on, just keep moving, just keep moving, because it's those very passive aggressive behaviors that some white people are looking to get a response out of a black person, especially a black man, because they want to initiate an action and then cry victim. And it's like, you just victimized that black man, and he doesn't have any way to defend himself, any way to convey himself, and he's angry and he's upset. And it's like, instead of you acknowledging that that black man was violated in some type of way or triggered to behave in the way he was triggered to respond, you'll rather say, oh, well, something's wrong with him, when there's really nothing wrong with them. What you say, Sean Anthony? If you think your questions are being seen on Facebook, go to our YouTube channel. That's a good post, Shanette, because I'm not aware if we can see all of the comments. What did you say, Mike? We're afraid that our vulnerabilities will be used against us. I agree, Mike. And I have seen so many black men say exactly what you're saying. And it's true. Sometimes people get upset and they get in their feelings, and then they what you say, Mike? We definitely throw hands. Yeah. But see, that can get to a criminal record too, Mike. So you gotta be more aware that this is a problem, because that is not the correct response. A touch for a touch, a word for a word. That's legal. I'm gonna put it that way because I don't want to get too far into but I tell my sons, I don't care who it is, man, woman, child, whomever, a word for a word, a touch for a touch, that'll keep them mentally balanced. And balance is key. That's what we're all striving towards. And we can't get there without a little exercise and practice. But a lot of times, body imaging struggles also exist for men. Yeah, men have body imaging struggles. It's not just a woman's problem or struggles of the LGBTQ Q2S plus community. I know the language. I know it. Oh, anyway, it's a human problem. It's a problem that has potential to have mental struggles in the absence of the balance and the needs being fulfilled or addressed properly. Getting help starts with seeking balance, if nothing more. And a lot of times, you're the only one that's going to know if you off balance. You're the only one that's going to know when you have something going on wrong. So you got to be more willing to address the problems that you may have. What you say, Mike? Look, I know, right? A lot of times, Mike, people are conditioned, black men are conditioned to throw hands or fight and be physical because they want to prove that y'all barbaric and don't know how to communicate effectively. I know my back's big. Hey, the thing about it is black men have always been conditioned that they have to be strong, that they have to endure. And it came from slavery. And that was one of the groups of problems. I'm not going to say one problem, but it's a mental issue that's been passed down generation to generation since slavery, because all the silent endurances that we've had to have. And then we were raised by those generations who were enslaved, and then those people who were raised by the people who were the slaves, and then they told them, well, we're not going to talk about it. And then that's where you got those generations where they say to their kids, well, you don't need to know, we don't need to talk about that. And that's why you have a whole bunch of generations that don't know a whole lot of information, because people's feelings are tied up into all of those emotions, all of those lived experiences that no one really wants to talk about, and those things that people burn in history books about because they don't want their white family members to know their ancestry in the way that African American communities are aware of their ancestry. So that's another thing that black people got to deal with, you know? And it's like we don't acknowledge it because we don't talk about it enough. Because instead of us trying to understand why we have efficacy issues, we try to push it under the rug. Well, we just had a similar conversation this past Sunday. Did y'all? I'm sorry I missed it. I would have loved to have been there. What'd you say? I'm talking tonight. Thank you. But a modern day issue that I've noticed with men, you might be mad at me now, Mike. I'm just gonna tell you a heads up. Um, a modern thing that I've seen lately is men's claiming, the men's claim, the black man's claim of being high valued syndrome. You ever heard a man say, "I'm a high valued man"? Look, bruh, look. I'm just gonna tell you, get your head out the clouds, because this thing called delusions of grandeur, you might be experiencing that. I'm just going to tell you straight out. Some guys put themselves on pedestals, but they owe, some reality, you know, because a lot of times, yeah, a black man has to hype himself up and say, I'm a high caliber man. So you might be amping yourself up to do and behave in, a higher status, or not be so reactive to every stimulus or everything that may be bothering you. But a lot of times you petty. You petty for even having to tell anybody you a high value man. I'm just saying that high value man syndrome is thick, is running deep in the black man's community, because yeah, y'all saying it, but you're, I think, more so trying to convince yourselves of that, while you're constantly being what is it what is it denied, while you're constantly being denied, and while you're constantly having somebody to tell you no, and being rejected by somebody that you may feel like should be more accepting of you and want a relationship with you, but for whatever reason you're being rejected by them. So you develop this armor, this defense, and say, well, I'm a high caliber man. I don't have to wear name brand this or that in order for a woman to know that I have all this money. There was a PhD, and he has his own business. He's a neuro psychologist, and he's doing really great things. And he felt the need to tell me he's a high caliber man. And I just looked at him like, okay, and a lot of times a man will tell a woman who is a good thing that he's a high caliber man. But if you are indeed a high caliber man, you don't need to announce it the same way that that good thing didn't need to announce to you that she's a good thing. You just knew it. So, just let your whatever is in you come out of you in a way that doesn't seem that you're putting yourself on a pedestal at the same time of being extremely defensive. There's a way to do that. Just be yourself, calm down, relax. What'd you say, Mike? I don't think there's anything wrong with thinking highly of yourself, but there are some truths that you have to accept. Yeah, and I'm getting to that too. It's a good point you made, because that guy, not just him, but I'm using him as an example because he's extremely intelligent. And with that being said, he couldn't identify that a woman who is telling him what's wrong with him, like, oh, you real petty for having to say that, for having to announce that. Black men get so defensive that they can't accept, they can't receive that kind of critical criticism, that's not necessarily to tear them down, but to build them up and advance them in ways that they couldn't accept criticism and critique otherwise. Because if you feel the need to, tell somebody or announce this sort of thing, then you should be receptive to understanding what you did wrong in your announcement and why it is that you petty and the problems that you might want to improve upon so that you don't feel obligated to make such announcements. You understand? So it's like you don't have to announce it. Just like a good thing, when a woman walks in the room, every head gonna turn. And I mean every head. Okay. What does Mike say? What is a high caliber man? We need to get that definition established. I know, right? They always feel, well, from what I was told, men going around here wearing whatever they want, mismatching in colors of their outfits, and shoes don't match, off-brand watches, and a vehicle that's just an A to B because he just out and about. But when he step out in an after five or in an intentional manner, he GQ, So he from head to toe got, expensive everything on, but he doesn't always do that because he's not flashing. He's not gaudy. So he just wants somebody to expect that even though he looked like a bum, he got millions or whatever, or the potential to have millions. Like a lot of white men go around and they look like they don't have a dime, but they rich or extremely well to do. A lot of black men in the black community are saying, well, I'm a high caliber man because I can do that same thing. And I just want other people to understand and think and believe that I got that kind of stature and status and financial ability too. Unfortunately, it doesn't go that way because most often time than not, black men feel like they got to adorn themselves with all kinds of monetary items, expensive grill, expensive chains around their neck, like they're in bondage. It's so much, it's so heavy, expensive clothing, a hoodie that costs $500 to $1,000, shoes that cost $7,000 for, just a snake skin pair of shoes or suede shoes or something. They have to adorn themselves with all the money that they can be saving in the bank or investing somewhere because they feel the need that they have to show what they have, as opposed to let people patiently learn what you have in a manner that makes you look like a high caliber man, so you wouldn't have to announce it. Let them be surprised. Let them be surprised. You can drive a nice quality car and have a nice, big old mansion that you drive into without having to adorn yourself with every dime you have in the bank. Okay? That's all I'm saying. What you say, Mike? I guess I must be a high caliber man then because my rims on my car only spin on the weekend. Well, I'm gonna leave that to Kelly. Kelly is the only one that needs to know whether you a high caliber man or not, because she the only one getting that coin. Okay, that's all I'm saying, sis. Get your man, get your man. Everybody don't need to know you a high caliber man when you don't have to announce it, where people can just see the quality of the man that you are and how well you convey yourself, how well you carry yourself. You could be in a baseball cap, after five, shadow on your face, and some jogging pants with some shoes that you've been gardening in, and people will know. They'll be able to identify that you are a high caliber man just by the way you talk, just by the way you carry yourself, just by the way you will treat someone who you don't even know. It's like integrity. Integrity means the way you behave when no one is looking. And that's how people know you have integrity, because even though no one's watching you, you help some homeless person get a meal. Even though no one's watching you, you helped a lost child find their mother, even though she didn't even say thank you. Even though, you're not getting thank you, you're not getting accolades, you're not getting anything in return, you still do things that are high valued, and nobody has to pet you on the back for it or pet you on the head and say good boy. And a lot of black men, you might not want to pet him on the head and say good boy. I'm just saying. I absolutely agree, because I've never been in a room where a woman walked in the room and announced that she was sexy. Hello, Mike. I'm saying, Mike, and you'll never have to walk in a room as a high value man and all the women in there won't recognize. It'll be a room full of men, full of men. But let a high value man walk up in that room. Everybody's going to know just by the way he carries himself. Everybody could be wearing the same thing. They can have on the same shoes, same outfit, same cologne. Let that man walk up in there. I'm telling you, he gonna change the atmosphere. It's something about him. It's something about a good woman. It's something about a good man. Something about a good person that when they enter a room, it just changes the atmosphere. But let's get back to black men's mental health. Because a lot of times black men, and I'm happy you're not like that, Mike. Black men can be really petty because they'll be like, you can't tell me where I'm coming up wrong or what I'm doing wrong. And, you know, when you present facts to a high caliber man and he's rejecting those facts and refuse to advance himself and improve himself, that is not, I don't care how much he announces that he's a high caliber man. He is not a high caliber man. He is a man who is hurting. He is a black man who wants some help but don't know how to ask for it. He is a black man who believes that he can advance, but he don't know how to. He may have money, he may have PhDs, he may have everything he can imagine that he wants, but there's something missing. And until he acknowledges it, he can't get the woman that he wants. He'll never find that the women who are trying to help him are actually loving on him, not hurting him. But that happens with black men for the previous reasons that I told you about: defense, deflect, and fear of commitment. It all works hand in hand. It's kind of in tandem, really. But when I present facts about someone's behavior that they need to work on, I also tell them, embrace it. Embrace what's wrong so that it'll never be able to be used against you. Embrace it. What you say, Mike? Sometimes truth is a hard pill to swallow when you're choking on your own pride. Hello. Pride comes before the fall, don't it? But mental health identifies delusions of grandeur as a mental health concern, not something to brag about or to use to demean others. When people have this delusion of grandeur, talking about they're high caliber, this, that, and the third. Or a woman may feel like she got to walk in a room full of black men and say she's sexy, when you don't have to do that. You don't have to announce it. People who are trying to love you, they just do everything they can to overlook those things and be tolerant. But men can be too um, guarded at times too. Some men can fear being in a serious relationship for long term, intimate, kind of relationship. He can fear being in such a thing because with a man, they have this thing of acceptance that's different than any other culture of men. It's like they see themselves on a different level. And it's because in so many ways they are working on a whole different level than what it may seem parallel to other cultures, but black men really are on a different level than any other culture. So they have different women they reveal different versions of themselves to as a way to protect themselves from being hurt or being totally alone for oversharing. I know a lot of black women get mad because they don't want a black man to have more than one woman that he's being vulnerable with. But this is one of the reasons why. For men who fear oversharing, a woman who overshares may make a man feel comfortable because he looks at her like, she can't judge me. She can't judge me poorly when she find out, because she got problems. So a lot of times men may say they don't want a woman. Well, black men may say she talk too much. She this or that. And he'll complain about her all the time. But he's really loving it because he feels comfortable for knowing that she has so many flaws. There's no way she gonna judge him. So whether he claim he a high caliber man or a bum, she gonna accept it because she got a whole bunch of problems. So he feel more comfortable sharing with her and divulging his intimate flaws with her. But sometimes a lot of black men feel the intangible weight of what seems like the world on their shoulders, because there's a general understanding a black man does not represent himself. A single black man generally represents the potential for the opportunity he has being available to all those who come after him. That is a major weight on a person, on a black man, especially because a lot of other cultures, they only represent themselves. When they have an opportunity available to them, it's they don't think about anybody else coming behind them or who came before them. But a black man does. A black man sees it as he got to do the right thing, and he's got to be seen as being um more acceptable, so that anybody who's coming after him will also be accepted, and he doesn't shame the people who came before him. We're seeing it in modern day as well, when modern politics, speak about past laws and things that laws that's current that were derived from civil rights way back then. And how long ago? Maybe about 80 years ago. Because we're seeing how those men like Martin Luther King Jr. and my uncle Fred Shuttlesworth, who were upstanding black men, and they were representing all black men, so that anybody who was witnessing their behavior would understand all black men are not violent. All black men don't want conflict. All black men are not ignorant to the passive aggressiveness of white people and other people of cultures. And they're definitely not ignorant of the things that they tolerate. A lot of white people I've been around, they think that black people don't know. They think black men in particular. Why do I say black men? Because they are the heads of their community. Regardless of what you think, they are viewed as the head of the black community. And when someone who is white tells me, a white man to tell me, or a white woman to tell me, black people in your community, black men, they don't know. They don't know. And I look at them like, what makes you think they don't know? And they're expecting that if they do something, it's to trigger you. It's a stimulus to trigger a particular act from you. And when it does not trigger that violent response, I'll just be really blunt. They want to trigger a violent response from you. And when it doesn't, when it fails to trigger you to violence, they think you were just stupid and you didn't know. And they think that a lot of black men just aren't strong enough to endure these irrational abuses without being physically violent themselves. And it's been seen time and time again through the times of civil rights, when my uncle and Martin Luther King Jr. were fighting for rights and equality. It was seen then and it's seen even now when all these TikTokers are asking, well, why don't black people speak up? Why aren't black people trying to help out? I'm just saying, but the weight doesn't stop at just a man feeling like he has to represent for all black people who are coming before him, and not just for himself, but because when the black man is the one who comes next, it's that weight plus the weight of disappointing all those who came before you, just to say the least, and not go too deep, because you don't want to dishonor all the people who gave their life for the fact that now you have the opportunity to be in places that Martin Luther King Jr. dreamed that the black men and black women would be in right now today. And you don't want to dishonor that. And then you don't want to set it up for the next person who's going to come after you to feel like, man, they can't do it because it's so much pressure. It's too much pressure. But you can do it. And what you say, Mike? That is pressure. That's a pressure that these people don't know that you have, Mike. They don't know that black men have this kind of pressure, and they don't acknowledge it. And they don't acknowledge that this is why that black man acts the way he does. This is why that black man responds the way he does. This is why that black man has to continue to live the way he does and raise his black boys and other black boys to be the way they are. They don't understand. And we need to talk about it more, especially this month of June, because it's Men's Month. We need to talk about it because there's fathers in the community that's is different than it was years ago in the black homes, where the black fathers had to go and be out somewhere else so social services can come in and help the black women with the children financially. But the black men couldn't be found being in the homes. It's different now. It's a lot of different things that's happening. And because we now have the ability to talk about it without being hurt, without crying, without pointing fingers, but to just be informative, tell people what's happening and why is black men's mental health so important? Why is it so different? How can it improve efficacy in business and relationships and other adventures of advancing in wealth? What's the correlation there? Why is it linked to anything? I'm just saying. But one thing that we have known is some black men's mental health seems to be mastered when observing from outside looking in. So a lot of people are curious. A lot of white people, a lot of scientists, they want to know, especially now in this modern time when you see a lot of federal workers getting laid off, and they're like, well, man, black people been living through this for a long time. How did they get through it? How are they enduring? Well, black people were, working for 20 years almost, and just before they can qualify for that pension at 19.5 or 19.999 months, they get fired and they lose their pension. How did they handle it without snapping, without going postal? Because now white people are dealing with it. They witnessed those injustices. I know because I did the studies. They witnessed those injustices and they were pacified by being told, well, it's not going to happen to you. But look at now. I wrote it back then. It's clear that it's going to happen to them because you're going to eventually run out of minorities to victimize, and you still got to pay that money, and you're not making the kind of money in these organizations that can sustain having those kind of pensions be compensation once someone hits 20 years. I know. And that's why I was writing in that manner to inform what's wrong with the workforce, what's wrong with these old systems. That's why I wrote the dissertation that I wrote for my PhD. You got to know. And if you don't know, well, keep watching. I'm going to make that correlation far more clear. But first, we need to talk about the Black men's mental health so we can improve efficacy in all these different points of awareness. What you say, Mike? Fear of failure, inadequacy, fear of vulnerability. It's a lot of heavy silences we deal with. Yeah, Mike. Yeah. And a lot of times, let me get to this part because I'm going to help you out with it. A lot of times when Black men are having these problems, see, God didn't leave you out, because what he did was he made a good thing. A godly helpmeet is a vital part to achieve balance in mental health in whatever capacity she serves in, whether she's your mama, your wife, your sister, your cousin, or a friend that your wife approve of. I'm just saying, etc. A Black woman is the only one who can empathize with a Black man's lived experiences because she has the same problems. She's not empathizing with a Black man. She's relating to him. Now, I'm not trying to narrow the way and say that, she's the only one, because I said first, a godly woman. But and a godly woman can be anybody who God is using to help any Black man that needs the help. But above all else, a Black woman can reach a Black man because she empathizes as opposed to sympathizes. Sometimes it's necessary to empathize as opposed to sympathize, because sympathy can be demeaning to a Black man. No Black man wants you to, you know, oh, I'm so sorry for you, when you don't realize, you don't know what that Black man going through. And he'll tell you, you don't know me, you don't know my life, you don't know my story. But he can't say that to that Black woman because she got the same story. It's so similar to the point where you might as well say it's the same, even though it's a different level of the same stimuli. But that's why a heaven sent godly woman can work wonders. But it's something about an empathetic, intimate bond that fulfills a Black man in ways he would never have realized without that Black woman who can empathize with him as opposed to sympathize. There's a communal relationship which has empathy versus sympathy, and it hits different. It hits differently than anything else. I'm not saying people can't be happy in mixed culture relationships. I'm just speaking on Black men's mental health right now. Communal relationships is defined as a focus on mutual care and support of individuals or groups who are prioritizing that particular person's welfare and health above all others, because that's just what they're doing, and they don't expect anything in return. Imagine that, doing something and not even expecting anything in return. Loyalty does not equal or limit or is limited to ride or die. And a lot of times in the Black community, people say, oh, that's my ride or die. Nobody trying to die. They all trying to live. It's strive to survive and thrive despite challenges over times, likes, disappointments, and loss of love, because love may be helpful, but love is one monkey that won't stop no show. I'm just saying, you know, generational wealth is not always involved with love, but it may be like, well, I love this person and I love, the loyalty and commitment, so I'm going to reciprocate that, but I don't like you right now. I don't like everything you do. I don't agree with everything you do. And a lot of times you got to understand you're not going to agree, and it's okay. Work together though. Work together. I'm just saying, in business, be men. And a lot of times that's the mentality a lot of black men have. They're just doing what they have to do because in business, and that's the way they see things, they just got to man up. Some black men understood they must place their business ahead of their head and the voice in their pants. Some black men in the churches have made the mistake of putting their sex life ahead of their whole life. It's not just black religion, but I'm focused on black men right now. Because yeah, a lot of times people in diverse cultures, they say things like black men, they over sexualized. But because Black Lives Matter and all eyes are on you, especially after MLK Jr.'s dream or preach speech. You heard me the right first time, so I'm just gonna say he preached, he taught that. But anytime a black man conforms, it's like the end of the world. Some people have said that because we'll see these conformities in the leaderships in the churches, and then they'll other cultures will point to, oh, well, that church leader, he couldn't keep it in his pants in order to conduct business. Or, and a lot of times that's really the only leadership that a black man will be seen as having, because in business and white corporate America, it's very rare that a black man has a leadership role outside of the church. So that's why I'm saying that. But have you ever considered the reason black men are seen that way is because it's envy of the infamous BBC? Now think about that. With great power comes great responsibility. Sorry, not sorry. Increase your integrity and wild out with just one mate though. That way people can't see it as, oh well, you just didn't know how to control your intimate, desires. Because yeah, some black men, they try to prove themselves through sex. And in mental health, it can identify as compulsive sexual behavior or hypersexuality. But these symptoms are not exclusive to black men. But because that BBC that everybody is talking about and a lot of people are envious of, they're like, well, we got to talk about them because with great power comes great responsibility. I'm just putting it out there like it is, Mike. I'm just going to put it out there because a lot of times black men don't know why is it such a big thing. What you say? I didn't see that. Um, I definitely don't need you to feel sorry for me. I just want you to understand. I know, I know, but a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that, Mike. And because a lot of times black men have an inability to communicate effectively and convey them those kinds of feelings and desires, people don't know. So it's really important that in this men's month that we get these topics and these understandings out there, especially using these social media platforms, because you get to tell your real story. You get to be just as open and blunt about it and honest so that they'll know. And they need to know because it's affecting them financially. And they don't nobody like they money play with. So I'm just saying. But when you're having these issues, you may just need to get married if you're having, these sexual issues where you're like, I need, to prove myself sexually, prove it to just that one woman. Because a lot of times, black men, nobody is looking at your sexual excursions in a positive light the way they see it with anybody else. Oh, well, just like Coming to America, he's got to soak his world oats or whatever. Nobody's seeing it that way. Nobody's saying that. They're looking at you as being irresponsible. And men, you really have to watch where you spread your seed. Be more cautious about that because that directly affects your mental health when someone is controlling you through your child, through your seed. Watch yourself now because it's not just women who have to guard their body, it's men. You got to guard your seed because that's your future. You might not have been told that before, but watch your friends. See how it's driving them absolutely insane and avoid it. Tell other people, you black men that's going through it, tell somebody. Tell them how it drove you mad, insane, and how you've had to restrain yourself so that the next young black man don't fall for it. I'm just saying, tell somebody. So when you're having these sexual feelings, just marry somebody, somebody who can, you know, empathize with you in the way that you need and work with you. Everyone is not trained, everyone who is trained to be helpful is not necessarily that they're made for this. And it's a difference. And the difference is seen in the efficacy of their work. That's all I'm going to say. So don't stop seeking help or methods that help you improve your mental health just because the person that you found who was trained to help you failed to help you. A very healthy sex life can work wonders for mental health, though, and a few other benefits. I'm just gonna say it's helpful for a whole lot of things. That's why it's good to marry. So I'm not saying don't have a lot of sex if you're mentally stable, because it helps with a whole lot of things, not just mental stability. But you need to get married. It's not cool to be to the point where you feel like you can't get married because you have so many things you're dealing with or you don't have finances to deal with it. I know who I am. And I got married at the JP. And yep, I earned my white dress, but it's not a big deal to me. It wasn't a big deal. My boyfriend was on the bus. Eddie was on the bus, the big bean green. Okay. Meanwhile, I had other friends and males, black men and men of other cultures I was riding in their cars with, going places. But just because you know who you are and you know you may deserve better, it doesn't mean that that better is going to be right now or right at the stage where you are. And a lot of black men who aren't able to accept that you still got growing to do. Whether you're a high caliber man, whether you have some issues that you acknowledge or identify or not, there's things that you still have to work on. Work harder to identify when you're off balance. Start there. Examine yourself regularly. I know that's some biblical stuff, but it's facts. It's a history book as well. And it's telling you some things you really need to know. You are your first responder. You need to know that. Scientists are still learning, especially Western scientists and their Western medicines and techniques. An awesome psychologist or psychiatrist can only work from the info you provide and what they can observe from a brief interaction with you. Oftentimes, black men refuse to go to see a doctor until they're already in the late stages of a health concern, which is a major problem. A lot of times, black men feel like they can handle whatever is wrong with them. You don't have to be that strong, black man. Sometimes the things that's wrong need some medical attention or some outside assistance that you can't get unless you open your mouth or allow yourself to be vulnerable enough. Thank you. So go sooner because more upfront, honest, and say ouch. Sometimes it takes for you to say ouch. Black man, say ouch. Okay? It doesn't make you less of a man. It makes you the man who lives longer, happier, and healthy. So you have more time to advance the world in ways only you can. No one can tell your story better than you. So tell your story so that no one else can twist the narrative, twist your story. And you're still alive so you can tell it. Who's going to tell it better than you? That's been my time, but I wanted to mention something. Jesse Owens said, after I came home from the Olympics with my 4 medals, it became increasingly apparent that everyone was going to slap me on the back, want to shake my hand, or have me in their suite, but no one was going to offer me a job. That's a situation. That's a problem. That's something that black fatigue that we talk about. That's something that black men have been dealing with for so long. Thank you, Mike. Just say ouch. Because that right there, that hurt. That Jesse Owens, we still talk about today. Do you realize how long ago that was? That was 89 years ago, and it's a modern day issue today. Can you imagine that? Many years ago, Mildred Howard said, I think if we keep separating ourselves as black or white artists, then we separate ourselves from a larger audience. I just happen to be black, which I feel is an attribute, but it shouldn't be an issue. We're still dealing with that today, where we see a lot of red-haired white people feeling the love from the black community because they're being accepted into the black community as family. We should stop trying to separate ourselves and limit our audience and our money because we can't identify as family, as a country. We're a whole country. Black women do not sympathize with black men's problems. They empathize with it because they share the lived experiences daily, just like black men. So that's one reason why black women are very strong. They got their problems and they helping that black man with multiple levels of problems as heads of communities. I heard something most recently and then I thought about it. How do you call someone a slave without saying slave? You call them antique farming equipment. It's those types of slants of those people saying to someone who's African American, you're antique farming equipment. That's causing black fatigue because they taking it and sucking it up and trying not to put hands on you because that's going to end up bad. But a word for a word and a touch for a touch, I firmly believe in that because that's the law. But how do you say fighting words without saying fighting words? Fool around and find out. That's how. So you can laugh at the little jokes that you making and thinking that you getting off and black people don't understand what you're saying or doing. But you'll fool around and find out. Black people need grace for their mental health breakdowns more than anyone else because they have never caught a break with anything else. Not reparations, not credit, not establishing Black Wall Street, despite being the leaders in everything they participate in with Olympics. They haven't caught a break with nothing. And Black people are disproportionately afflicted, period. The heads of the Black community recognize their mental health issues, but they don't have time for it. Everyone that's grown for this ain't made for this. So keep looking for help. Find somebody that can help you. It's a lot of people like me out here. Yeah, that's crazy. I know. What you say, Mike? Play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. Yeah, Mike. But we got to keep searching to help one another and be helpful to one another. I did an episode once before with my sister, Philanda and Karen, and Philanda flipped the script on me and she asked me, what do I do? I have to be discreet because I work with a lot of people and I do things that deal with sensitive topics and I can't say what I do. So what I can say, I did say. I work with a lot of people who can't afford help, but they need the help. That's what I'm most happy about doing. That's what brings me fulfillment. It's not all the things I do in the background to help all the people who are leaders to lead. It's not even my global dissertation that's leading the way for workplace improvements in ways that a lot of people never fathomed before, because I'm a legacy family member of those topics. That's why I was able to advance those things in the way that I did. And that's why I'll continue to advance things the way I will do, regardless of who's on board, because it's what I do. Now, I've reached out to a whole lot of different people and men, heads of communities, heads of the communities I'm talking about and addressing and trying to help. And I'm doing it on a social platform now, because it's time to come from behind closed doors, because people need to know where that help actually came from, so they'll know how to get advancement, not just change. What you say, Mike? You're just like your husband. I tease him about how some of his background is redacted. I know, right? But a lot of times, humble is the way, especially when you're an African American woman. Nobody wants somebody who's braggadocious. And just because I don't say anything and I'll try to smile and try to say things as nice as possible and be as fundamental as possible, a lot of people think that, that means that I'm a little slow. It's not being slow. Just like a black man know when somebody's pushing his buttons. We all have to act like we doing that dance, because we're trying for a greater purpose. And that greater purpose is not known by nobody else other than a black man and a black woman. But to whom much is given, much is expected. God didn't bless you the way he did for you to mess it up. So keep your head up, keep moving forward, like, share, and discuss. All right, see you next episode. Remember, mental health is physical wealth. See you next episode. Mental health is physical wealth.